And welcome to the Pillar of Perspective series, where I pick a particular pillar and then I do a deep dive under a particular category in which I've actually been a practitioner of. And the first one I want to hit on today is something that I've talked about briefly, but not in depth. But this is something that I have experienced over the past 3 years. And when talking about body and mind, I am talking about, in particular, the plant-based diet. Now, this particular video, I just want to give some of my experiences. I want to actually talk about the plant-based diet a little bit. Not saying that you have to implement it into your life, but you could definitely take some things out of what I am giving you today and apply those to your everyday life. Now, the first biggest thing I noticed when doing the plant-based diet was really a big perspective shift. Now, this is something I do talk about throughout this channel, and that is because after actually being a practitioner of the plant-based diet, incorporating it into my life and living it for 3 years, I can tell you that it has really shifted my perspective on the way we look at things. A lot of times we come into different things with different beliefs, different thoughts, different ideas, and a lot of times society will tend to navigate us away from particular things because there's a stigma associated with it. And coming into the plant-based diet, it is one of the biggest reasons why I was very hesitant to even start doing it, because I didn't want to be essentially associated with that stigma, that negative stigma that's associated with being plant-based. Because initially I came in thinking I was vegan. And that is one of the biggest other different concepts to understand, is I didn't understand the difference between veganism, vegan, and essentially, vegetarian and plant-based, right? I didn't know anything about that. I vaguely knew of what they were. I didn't know the difference, but I know when I first started out, plant-based was really kind of a new thing, so I just went with the term veganism. Now, that being said, just to understand the difference between veganism and plant-based is, when you talk about veganism, you're more talking about the ethics and the morals behind veganism, and that's essentially, protecting the environment, protecting the animals, essentially watching your carbon footprint. It goes along with a lot of different things, a lot of things associated with veganism, where when you look at the plant-based diet, in short term, plant-based diet is just strictly for your health. You essentially take on a plant-based diet to improve your health. And that's what, again, initially brought me in to the plant-based diet. And again, why coming into the plant-based diet, it really shifted my perspective in realizing that, the possibilities are essentially right underneath our nose, right? And again, society will steer us away from these particular things, again, because there's a bad stigma associated with them. And so, typically when I was growing up, I've always, the only experience, or the only things I was exposed to that was being veganism, was those things you saw, the dramatic scenes you saw with splash red paint and animals and all that kind of stuff, right? The really bad side of it. And I didn't want to be associated with that initially. And then when I got into it, when I learned a lot more about it, I understood it more. And so in doing so, yes, I have more compassion than I previously did coming into this, and understanding what it was about. And I think that was the biggest thing. And then taking that perspective and applying that perspective, that I was coming into everything with my glass full, as opposed to looking to actually seeing what's really there. Because if you give it a headline view, a top-down view, or a quick view of it, you're only going to get bits and pieces of it. You're not going to get the whole story. It's not till you essentially engulf yourself in that information to really understand what it's about, living it. And when I did this, when I incorporated this diet, it really gave me new perspective. So essentially, it allowed me to seek out other perspective that I was perhaps lacking in challenging what I was believing in and all the other beliefs that I had in my life. And so in understanding that, again, this has led me to, again, the other different pillars that I teach, being wealth, and then the other one being soft skills, and understanding that, they aren't as bad as we make them out to be. Again, I'm going to hit under a bunch of other different topics, under different pillars, because I don't want to stray off too far here, but to understand that, you know, the perspective it gave me has definitely made me want to look at other things and discover other things and implement new changes, new thoughts and ideas, where before I didn't think I was ever really a fixed mindset. I knew I always had to try hard, but you know, understanding what a fixed and a growth mindset was, it really helped me understand that, okay, well, it's just a matter of time before I understand it, and then I will get it, and then, you know, all will be well, essentially. And just so the whole coming into the plant-based diet was a real eye-opener, just to say the least, and it has exposed me again not only to a great diet, essentially, from what I believe and what it does for my body and where it's taking me, because I've lived the experience to know where I was to where I am now, and the world of difference in my body and mind since then. And a lot of people may ask, you know, why are you so energetic? Why are you so, you know, upbeat all the time? And it's, you know, it's a combination a lot of the mind, but I do talk about the fact that, you know, it is about the fuel that you ingest in your body, and understanding that the fuel you ingest on a plant-based diet is the best kind of fuel, in my opinion. Now, before you stray off, I'm going to give you the reasons why, and understand this. You have to understand that a lot of stuff that we eat that is processed has a lot of salt in it, essentially to preserve those things that you eat. And understanding that, you know, that can cause a lot of damage in your body. And not only that, but you have to understand that since we are evolving, our agriculture and everything has had to evolve, so we've had to scientifically recreate things, essentially, right, to morph things into essentially being able to feed the mass amount of people around the world, right? And understanding this, our bodies are constantly battling this thing called free radicals, which essentially will mutate the cells in your body. So in saying that, right, you may have cancerous cells in your body. This is something to understand, and those cells may never get activated in your life, but being exposed to a lot of free radicals, they can actually mutate those particular cells and make it 10 times worse. But in knowing that, there are things you can implement, right? There are things like the plant-based diet. Now, I'm not saying you have to all eat plant-based diet, but what I'm saying is you want to incorporate more leafy greens, more berries, more nuts, more natural things. You know, if it doesn't come from a tree, or if it doesn't essentially come from the ground, right? You want to stay as close to nature as possible is ultimately where we're going from here. So if you can do that, you can help battle these free radicals in your body. And the more you do this, right, and it really comes down to this chemical battle in your body, and understanding that this is why you notice a lot of the fitness industry and health industry are pushing more eating stuff closer to nature, because of this fact, because of the free radicals that are mutating our bodies, that just evolution has got us to, and just how essentially our bodies, right, being exposed to our new environment, right? Our environment has been being changed over the hundreds of thousands of years, right? And to understand that not only that, but that's, again, our bodies are being exposed to all different kinds of things with the new kinds of creations that we have, you know, the pollution, all these other different things that are going on in our world. You know, again, your body's always fighting free radicals, and the best way to combat that is by not taking a pill, but by what you eat in your body, and understanding that there is a big difference in trying to incorporate as many things close to nature as possible to help battle against these free radicals. Now, the last thing I kind of want to just touch on here is essentially how to get started, right? If you want to, become plant-based, or even if you just want to incorporate some greens and some other, like, more closer to nature things in your life, you have to essentially slowly progress into it, right? Because depending where you are, you're going to have to change your lifestyle. Realize it's a lifestyle change. And not only that, but you have to, again, slowly make your way. If you really want it to stick, you got to slowly make that transition. And this is something I talked about over one of my lives, was the fact of this idea of boiling a frog, right, is to, and again, nothing against my vegan friends out there or anybody like that. Just understand this is the concept I am talking about, right? How do you boil a frog? You have to understand that to boil a frog, you can't throw a frog into a boiling hot water, right? The frog will jump out. You have to slowly churn up the temperature of the water to eventually where the frog starts boiling and doesn't even realize that it is boiling, right? You want to slowly increase that temperature. So it goes the same for transitioning into this plant-based diet. You have to slowly incorporate new things, right? Slowly incorporate a salad every time you have a meal, every dinner time, and then slowly incorporate perhaps some beans or quinoa, or there's other different things out there you can essentially make, right? You have to understand that going on a plant-based diet can really bring you a lot of benefits, because you can get fuller a lot more than you think you can, because of the fact that our current diet, the current American diet, lacks fiber really bad, and the fact that we have to take a supplement when all you really have to do is just eat more leafy greens and stuff, and you'll have the amount of fiber in your diet. Why take a supplement that doesn't typically work nowhere near as good as if you just ate stuff naturally? And if you can stay closer to nature, you realize that this helps your body. It's a slow progression, and understand that. But you realize that the more you do this, that the more you feel so much greater, and you get clarity, your thought process, right? You're more focused. There's just a lot of changes that go into your body, and you notice that when you transition over, that you can notice the big change. I had big changes when I first transitioned over. Now that it's a normal thing, I expect it, right? Once you get used to something, you expect it to be there. But there are times when I will eat a little bit more processed food than I probably should, and I notice the difference. I start feeling like garbage, really fast, the next day. It's almost like a hangover, to be honest. But this is understanding the difference, right? If you are living a specific lifestyle, if you eat something that's off, you are going to feel it the next day. And I completely 110% feel it. And so again, if you were thinking about transitioning this, I'll actually leave a bunch of books down below, a bunch of resources that you can read up on. And that way you can understand the plant-based diet a lot better. There's a lot of misconceptions out there and all that kind of stuff, again, but I believe in the diet. It doesn't say you have to, or I'm pushing this. I'm just saying you have to incorporate more natural things into your life. Now, with that being said, over the past 3 years, I've really learned a lot. This diet, the plant-based diet, has really anchored me. It's allowed me to become not groggy. It's allowed me to be focused. It's allowed me to be more energetic, all naturally. And the best thing I love about it is it also helps increase your recovery time. I've seen dramatic recoveries. And a good example of this is the other day, I was running and I actually stepped in a hole by accident, and I twisted my ankle. And then the next day, I was actually running on my ankle. It wasn't painful at all or nothing. Initially, it was extremely painful. I thought I couldn't run at all for a couple days. Going even into that night, I didn't feel like I could run. And then going into the next day, right, even when I woke up, I felt like my ankle was really tore up. I felt like I don't know if I could run or not. We'll see how I am by the end of the day. Ultimately, what happened was by the end of the day, my foot felt back to normal again. Yes, it was swollen. My ankle was swollen, but it felt back to normal. So much so I went running on it, right? And it was completely fine. And so this one thing just to understand is that your recovery time on this particular diet is astonishing. I've gone through so many different examples of like that, like working out. Before, I'd hit it hard in the weight room and then come back and my body was just beat down, and it took forever. It felt like I could never recover all the way by the time I was going back into the gym. And on this diet, it doesn't matter how hard I work, right? I may be tired and sore, but I bounce back. I have the energy. Next day, I'm ready to rock and roll. My body is always ready to rock and roll. My mind, again, always has clarity. I mean, it's such a world of difference. And, even running, I can run many miles that I thought I never could, and the energy is there. Yes, you do get tired. Yes, of course you're going to get tired, but ultimately, the plant-based diet really helps with that. It really helps re-energize you and keeps you going for longer durations. You don't get tired as easily, right? It really propels you, right? It all depends on your fuel ultimately. And this is why I stick with this diet primarily because of the fact of the health concerns I had a couple years ago, but ultimately understanding now it's more about the way I feel, and the way it makes me feel is a completely night and day than I did a couple years back, right? And understanding where I was then to where I am now. And realizing that I'm always, anytime I'm off and again I start leaning towards processed stuff, I feel a big difference. I start feeling sick. I start feeling like garbage, like I don't want to do anything. And that's just understanding that what you put in your stomach, right, your essentially is your fuel to your brain and all the other things that you're going through throughout your day. And I do talk about that all the time. And so nonetheless, I want to leave it there. I don't want to go too in depth with a lot of stuff on this video. I just want to kind of give a little bit of my insights of what I've learned over the past couple years, that I've actually lived for 3 years and actually been a practitioner of this diet, and how much I stand by it, because I have seen the dramatic difference that it's done. And again, not only through the perspective that has showed me and changed my thought process of the particular diet you should have, but not only that, but the fact that of what it's done and the way it's made me feel. And again, I'm turning 40 here in a couple months, and you know, I feel better than I did when I was in my early 20s. And this is just from the diet change. And in summary, I have been practicing the plant-based diet for 3 years, and these are some of the things that I have learned. I know there's a lot of misinformation out there. You really need to understand and realize that it's going to be a transition into it. Don't just try to crash. It's not a crash diet at all. You realize that by doing anything as in that fashion, doing it in a crash diet, you're going to fail. So ultimately, that being said, just realize that you want to slowly incorporate greens, whether you're going to go full plant-based or just incorporate some. Just realize what it does with the free radicals. Understand that you are essentially combating those free radicals in your body by eating more plants, eating more fruits, more vegetables, and helping combat that. So remember, if you did like this video, to hit the like button on the way out. Till next time, I will see you guys later.